Hi, this is Alex from devstories.eu. Pydantic Data Validation, Episode 4 of 20. Have you ever been forced to name a Python variable with camelCase just to parse an external API payload? You know it breaks standard Python naming conventions, but the incoming JSON dictates the key. The solution to this is field aliases for validation and serialization. When you ingest data, the keys in that payload often do not match how you want to structure your Python code. If a third-party service sends a user profile with the key user N name, you want to map that to a standard snake case variable called user_name. Pydantic handles this translation layer using the field function, specifically through its alias arguments. The simplest approach is the base alias argument. When you declare your model attribute, you assign it a field and set the alias parameter to the string expected from the outside world. If you set the alias to the camelCase version, Pydantic uses that exact string for both reading and writing. When validating incoming data, it looks for the camelCase key. When you later serialize the model to dump it back out to JSON, it writes the camelCase key. Your internal Python code operates entirely on the snake case attribute, completely isolated from the external naming convention. That handles symmetric data, where the input format and output format are identical. Now, the second piece of this is asymmetric data. What happens when you consume data from a legacy system using one naming convention, but you need to serve it to a new client using another? This is where you split the logic using validation aliases and serialization aliases. These are separate arguments you pass to the field function. A validation alias strictly dictates what Pydantic looks for when creating the model. If you provide a validation alias, Pydantic will use it to pull the value from the incoming payload, overriding any base alias you might have set. Conversely, a serialization alias controls only the output phase. When you call a method to dump the model into a dictionary or JSON string, Pydantic uses the serialization alias as the output key. Here is the key insight. You can define a single field with 3 distinct identities. The validation alias catches the messy input string from the legacy API. The Python attribute holds the clean snake case variable you use in your business logic. Finally, the serialization alias defines the polished, standardized key that gets sent to your front end. Sometimes the problem is not a rigid naming convention, but an inconsistent one. You might receive payloads where the user identifier is sometimes camelCase and sometimes a single word with no spaces. To handle this, Pydantic provides a utility called alias choices. Instead of passing a single string to the validation alias, you pass this utility containing a list of strings. During validation, Pydantic scans the incoming payload for each string in the order you provided. The moment it finds a matching key, it extracts the value, assigns it to your Python attribute, and ignores the rest. By separating how data is parsed from how it is exported, aliases decouple your internal Python object design from the arbitrary naming constraints of the outside world. That is all for this one. Thanks for listening, and keep building.